Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to answer 7 questions I get all the time about teaching in the US. Maybe you're wondering about one of these things too, so stick around until the end for the quick answers. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out all my other videos about teaching and living in the US on a visa. You can also find me on Facebook where I share lots of resources on international teaching opportunities outside the US. That's also where I do my free coaching and consulting on scheduled dates and times. So be sure to follow my page there too. Question number 1, should I look for a school first or a visa sponsor first? You can do either or both at the same time. As long as your chosen route gets you a job offer, then that's it. But I personally prefer looking for a visa sponsor first and being qualified by them. Here's why. First, many schools are not familiar with the process required to hire a foreign teacher. They may be interested in hiring you, but if they are clueless about this, they will not be able to help you with a visa sponsorship. I have heard many stories from teachers asking how to respond to the school's email asking them if they are qualified to teach in the US. This pertains to teaching certification in the US. They don't know about J1 visa, which does not require this before going to the US. They ask about the social security number. Visa sponsors will take care of this if you find a visa sponsor first. Second, some schools are familiar with hiring foreign teachers, but if they're not visa sponsors themselves, you will have to find a visa sponsor, which is a whole other process. And what if you get a job offer, but all the visa sponsors have already filled their slots? Then the job offer is basically worthless, at least for that school year. Some schools might be willing to wait for you to find a visa sponsor, but that's a long shot. And honestly, it's stressful. Third, so many visa sponsors already have agreements with schools and school districts. That means they'll take care of matching you with the school and setting up interviews for you. I've been talking about this stuff in my videos, Reels, Facebook Live, and other posts, but just to be clear, the process is different for J1 visa and H1B visa. Fourth reason why I prefer for you to look for visa sponsor first. Visa sponsors are in the know about what foreign applicants need to get their visas approved. But most schools are not, unless they're the ones sponsoring the visas. Some schools will offer you a job because they're desperate for teachers, so you're like a godsend to them. But when it's time to process your visa application, they don't realize that you have to be eligible first. There are other requirements besides a teaching license. So there. In case you do not know how to start the application process, watch this video. If you want to know where to find J1 visa sponsors that don't charge program fees and H1B visa sponsors, then watch these videos. Question 2. How much does it cost to apply as a teacher in the US on a J1 visa? I made a video a little while back where I talked about 4 kinds of expenses: unnecessary expenses, negotiable expenses, non-negotiable expenses, and not really an expenses. Yeah, I know, weird names, right? If you want to know what I mean by each of those, you can check out the video in the description below. So if you will choose to do the application process on your own, which we call DIY, then more or less the expenses would come down to the non-negotiable expenses of $245.5, negotiable expenses of $1,640, not real and expense, which is $2,000 US dollars, a total of $3,885.5. In Philippine pesos, it will be 216,620.51. If you hired a placement agency, a facilitating agency, and attend a paid seminar, then your total will be more or less. Again, there's the non-negotiable expenses of $245.5, the negotiable expenses of $1,640, not real and expense $2,000, and the unnecessary expenses of $6,150 to $17,150, a total of from $10,035.5 to $21,035.50. And in Philippine pesos, then this will be from 559,489.16 to 956,129.65. It's a huge difference, right? So go do the application process on your own. You have all the information you need from my channel. Just be diligent and patient, but like I always say, you do you. Do what works for you. Question number 3. Should I submit my bachelor's degree and graduate degree transcripts separately for foreign credential evaluations? And when should I turn in my transcripts for credential evaluations? Since the fee is the same whether you turn in both transcripts at the same time or separately, it's better to do it at once. If you turn them in separately, you'll have to pay twice. Just be aware that not all states will give credit for a graduate degree that's not directly related to the job you're applying for. For example, if you have a master's degree in educational management and you're applying to be a math teacher, some states won't consider that degree. But since other states might, it's still worth turning it in for an FCE along with your bachelor's degree transcript. If you're applying for an H-1B visa, you should get your FCE done ASAP. For J-1 visas, some sponsors don't mind if you do it later, but they will usually tell you when and how to do it and which service provider they prefer. But even if you're applying for a J-1 teaching job, it's not a bad idea to get it done early. The most popular FCE service providers are Spantron and WES. Make sure to use one of these two and ask for a course-by-course evaluation, which is also called a course analysis. Question number 4. Which one is better, J-1 visa or H-1B visa? I made a video about this recently, so if you want to know the ins and outs of these two visas, check it out. But in short, the best visa for you depends on your goals, your family's goals, and your circumstances. By circumstances, I mean things like your marital status, whether you have kids, and your age. If you want to stay in the US long term and you're okay being the sole breadwinner for your family, go for the H-1B. It's a 6-year visa, but your spouse and kids won't be able to work on H-4 visas. They can only work if you start the process of getting a green card at the end of the 6-year program. If you're single, there is a possibility of marrying or settling in the US, and that is also what you want, then H-1B visa is for you. If you're not sure if you want to stay in the US long term or if you're planning to go back to your home country after your program ends, the J-1 visa is a better option than the H-4 visa. That's because your spouse can work on a J-2 visa, which H-4 visa holders can't do. So for 5 years, you and your spouse can both work and earn as much as you could. The downside, of course, is that you have to go back to your home country and be physically present there for 2 years before you can come back to the US on another J-1 visa or on an H-1B visa. The type of visa you have will not have any effect on your salary. Your salary is dictated by your credentials and teaching experience, and of course, the rate that they have in the state, wherever you will be assigned to teach. Question number 5. When is the best time to submit the application? If you're applying directly to schools, you should start your application by January because that is the start of the hiring season. I know you will see schools that are hiring year-round, but that's for teachers who are already in the US. The teacher shortage is never really filled, so foreign teachers need a visa sponsor, and visa sponsors usually fill their slots by September. If you start your application in September and want to get hired in the same year, it will be difficult to find a visa sponsor. Many visa sponsors, especially J-1 visa sponsors, close their applications by August, and some even earlier than that. If you're applying to visa sponsors, you should aim to submit your application by November or December. You can still submit your application until February, but make sure your documents are ready and you're not just starting to prepare them. Once you're approved and pre-qualified by a visa sponsor, you just have to wait until the hiring season for US school starts. Again, that's in January. That's when your visa sponsor will start matching you with schools. If you want to know how to get hired fast, watch this video, and for interview tips, this video is for you. Question number 6. Do I need to get the state teaching license before I could apply? If you're trying to get a teaching job on an H-1B visa, then you have to obtain a state teaching license before applying. Each state has a different process and requirement for teaching certification. If the visa is J-1, then you do not have to obtain a state teaching license before applying. It will be arranged when you are already in the US. The district or your employer and the visa sponsor will help you on this. Question number 7. Am I required to turn in a medical certificate? H-1B visa applicants are required to get a medical exam and turn in a medical certificate. J-1 visa does not require the applicant to turn in a medical certificate at the time of the application. However, once in the U.S., school districts will require a TB test and drug test in addition to a criminal record check. Please subscribe if you have not already. Like this video on your way out and leave some comments too if you don't mind. Thank you for watching this video and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.